Connecticut's legal cannabis industry is almost 4 years old now. So how is business? Our News 8 political reporter Mike Cerulli visited a retail cannabis store in Derby with a new feature that's the first of its kind in Connecticut. Mike is there with our story tonight. Mike.
Hey Darren, happy Friday to you. You know, when you talk to Connecticut cannabis retailers and even some state officials, they tell you the cannabis industry here is lagging behind our neighboring states. Now, some rule changes and some creative entrepreneurs are trying to change that, but even still, that broader debate about legalization still burns on.
Probably recommend something like this hippie.
This is what buying legal cannabis in Connecticut looks like in 2025. Or at least, this is what High People in Derby looks like. See this display case? They call it a bud bar. It's the first of its kind in the state thanks to recent regulatory changes. Customers can get advice from bud tenders, and they can look at and smell the product before buying it.
And that in itself is like game changing, because those are the things that are really important to people when choosing and selecting flower.
New state rules allowing for bud bars are a welcome change for entrepreneurs like David Salinas, but he says Connecticut still lags behind other neighboring states when it comes to product, pricing, customer experience, and marketing. Because of those differences, many Connecticut cannabis users opt to buy in other states.
We've all probably heard the experience of you have a friend who's going up to Vermont to ski for the weekend and someone says, hey, pick me up some edibles on the way back. That's taking business away from your business here in Connecticut, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Another example of regulations that the industry says hurts business? Connecticut has strict rules on how cannabis is packaged. See how the packaging is all relatively colorless? That's due to state law.
For example, Soundview is a veteran-owned, Connecticut-started, invested-in company. This company could do decent or in Connecticut, but they'll never actually be able to do that, have that Coca-Cola-esque brand in the country.
One lawmaker who opposes the commercialization of the cannabis market defended keeping the state's rules as is.
You got to figure if somebody walked into a dispensary, they're probably there to purchase marijuana in the first place. So I don't know how changing the rules that we have for cannabis inside of a dispensary is going to make a difference. They're not allowed to use super colorful logos or some of the more trendy names. We're afraid that if they do that, it sort of becomes like a Joe Camel situation.
But the state official who runs the agency in charge of spending much of Connecticut's cannabis tax revenue had a different take.
If we, Connecticut, within this industry, want to compete with Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, we've got to really take a hard look at our current policies.
And Salinas told me the state might also want to consider changing other rules, like perhaps allowing on-site consumption so that these bud bars can feel more like actual bars. That change, of course, would have to come from state lawmakers and regulators. Live in Derby tonight, Mike Cerulli, News 8.